Okay, let's start this panel discussion about a really cool topic, going public in Sweden. And one of the questions I have is actually, what about a non-Swedish company going public, listing here? And we have one, because you guys are from Finland.
That's right.
You are Cleantech Invest, and you are not even a startup, but a startup investor.
That's right.
Why and when and how did you go public?
All right, so my name is Timo. I'm founding partner of Cleantech Invest, and we went public 3 years ago, but we did it first in Finland. That was First North Finland, where we are still listed, and then later on we did the dual listing here in Stockholm. So why we chose to list? We are an early stage investor, and for us it was really choose of whether to set up a fund where you have all the LPs, you have like a fixed structure, let's say 10-year term. When you make an investment, you already know that you're going to have to make an exit at a certain point of time, predetermined point of time. And for us, that we saw that that's not the best optimal way to create value. For us, we saw that being listed and being able to be an evergreen structure where we can hold on to our portfolio firms as long as we'd like, with all the other flexibilities related to being an independent listed company, it is a much better deal for us in so many ways.
I have the opinion, and maybe, hopefully you disagree a little bit, most of the investors, especially the VCs and some of the corporate VCs, they're very secretive, right? And you don't really learn so much about their fund performance and their portfolio performance. But this IPO was really helping you become and pushing you to become a more transparent investor. What kind of transformation are you actually going through in order to be a transparent investor? And how much do you tell the market actually about the performance of your startups?
No, that is true, and if you are planning to list, that is one thing that you have to accept, that you really have to tell the world what you are up to, and that is what we are doing more and more. We are really focused on communications, and so we like in our latest half-year report, we are showing that the portfolio company revenues have increased fourfold to 60 million euros. So we are giving these numbers, and that can be like very atypical for investors to do. I agree.
Yeah. Per, when did you list Powercell, and why did you do it? And are you happy with the share price performance after the IPO?
The outcome. We listed it end of 2014, and the main reason was that one of our venture companies, the Volvo Group, wanted to not participate anymore. So we took a race where we investigated to find another venture company in Europe to fill up. But for many reasons, it came to a valuation situation because the new VC company would like to invest on a very low value, and the old ones said that the value is very high. So therefore we have discrepancies. So after that, we concluded that why not put it on Nasdaq and to have the real value there. So we started an activity, and it was a very hard work over half a year. And then we went public in, I think it was 18th of December, just before the Christmas.
How much did you raise at
we raised
time?
At that time approximately, we have what we call a unit, and you have an opportunity to buy one share and one warrant for that. So in 2 stages, we took in 100 in the first step, and then additional 60 million or 10 million euro and additional 6 million euro. On a value of approximately 200 million, that means the share price was 8.60, 8 crowns 60. And today the share price is around 32. So I think the people who joined are very happy at this moment.
400%.
400%, yep.
Yeah. So basically your market cap, I wrote it in my introduction, it's 186 million euro, or it used to be a couple of days ago.
Yeah, approximately, yes.
So it's really a lot, 186 million. Remember that this is not crowns, euro. But how much are your revenues? In fact, how much revenue do you have?
We have a very low revenue at the moment because we are selling prototypes. So our customers are testing our fuel cell stacks at the moment.
Yeah.
So the revenue is quite low.
What does it mean, quite low?
The last quarter we sold for 6 million SEK.
6 million SEK, 600,000 euro per quarter. Okay, let's assume they have 4 good quarters like this. It's 2.4 million revenues, but the valuation is 186 million. It's a big price-earning ratio, or even, I mean, it's a big ratio. What do you think is the reason why, compared to your revenues, this valuation is so high? It was really astonishing for me to find out about this. What is the reason?
I think it's many reasons, but one is of course that everyone understands that the batteries is not the future, and the fuel cells, because that Toyota is in front of it, have decided to go that route. And then of course our technology is the base, that we have a very strong patent portfolio. And addition to that is all our customer activities right now. We have now in place a big development program with Volkswagen, with BMW, with Daimler, and the German Ford. Few other companies have that cooperation in place. And then we received just before summer the first serial order from China of 20 million euro. And that's the first Chinese company, and there is a lot of other Chinese companies as well. So there is, of course, an estimation that over time this company will have a really high turnover that is in line with the valuation right now.
Göran.
Yes.
Before I come to you, one more question for Per. Because this is actually one of my key questions, and actually I believe many of you have the same question. We are now talking about a post-IPO directed share issue, which is an instrument where you can actually get a big investor inside the company by issuing new shares. And you have done this recently,
yes.
And it was actually a really big directed share issue.
That's right.
Can you explain
yes,
how you did it and
I
why?
think on the big annual shareholder meeting, you must receive that kind of mandate, that the board have to take that kind of decision. And the reason for we had a lot of negotiation with the Germans, the car companies, and partly of this program will be financed from the German government. And we understood that, of course, they will very soon look into our financial figures and see if we will be a sustainable company for this development program. So therefore, we concluded that we must very fast have this money in place. So therefore, we activated this according to the mandate, and we take 225 million SEK with some quite a little bit larger shareholder than what we have. Today, Powercell has 2 types of shareholders, so very big ones and a lot of small ones. And now we try also to have some in the middle in the meantime, and also more international investors. So it's we broadened the owner base, and we very fast went into this and have this money on board on the balance sheet. And in fact, 3 days after, I had a call from Berlin, from the Amt, who is looking into giving us support into this, where they requested the balance sheet. So it was from timing perfect for us, and just after that, we received the letter of intent that we are part in this program.
Yeah, and I think these directed share issues are now happening quite often, right? You also did it, right?
We've done actually several. That's right.
Several.
Yep.
Yeah, and it basically means after the IPO, yeah, if you want to buy a larger stake in a listed startup, it's still possible. The quite early IPO for a Swedish company is not the end of it. It's just one financing event, and there are all kinds of transactions possible if you are interested in listed startups. And I really wanted to make this clear. And if you want to get a little bit more background information, talk to these guys about the secrets they would not share on stage.
Why not?
Can I add
Yeah.
something? When you do this, you have to be very careful because a lot of your existing shareholders would like to participate, and they are extremely disappointed.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's important that you do that, so the dilution is very small. And in our case, we take on board 225 million, and with a dilution of 13%, 1-3. And that is important, because if you don't do that, the old shareholders are very irritating and are not happy to be owner of your company.
Yeah, because they are not participating in this directed share
In
issue.
this case, they didn't participate.
Yeah.
But the timing is, I totally agree, the timing is really important for us. It's been all about like protecting the owners from dilution. So we've done these share issues and in several phases. So our share price has fourfolded since the IPO, and if we were to raise all that money in the very beginning, the dilution would have been totally different what it is now. So, and being listed, you can do that. You can. It's a quicker process to raise funding. Yeah.
Göran, I think first time you came to the Ecosummit pitching was probably in Berlin.
Yes.
A couple of years ago, it was before your IPO, right?
Yes, that's right.
And what were your financing alternatives that you had in the moment of doing the IPO? Was the IPO actually the only alternative for you to raise a couple of million, or did you also have term sheets from VCs at the time?
Yes, we never got that far as actually having term sheets to discuss, but our conclusion was that all these years of discussing with VCs, you were never sure of moving forward. I think, especially in Sweden, I would say that the VC market works probably very well for IoT-related things, but as soon as you mention the word manufacturing, the VCs are out the door. And when you engage with them, it's very difficult to actually progress in and we needed a certain, I mean, we had to plan. And I think we realized that going public, doing an IPO was a perfect way of doing that. And in addition, we also wanted to make ourselves known to the general market, and I think in that case it works much better promoting the company. And nowadays we have 2,000 promoters in ways of shareholders. So and as we see it. Now the market is doing the valuation, so that is pretty much taken care of when discussing further. Yeah. Otherwise, you have this rather difficult situation of getting a correct valuation.
And do you think your market cap is a good value at the moment? Do you think it should be a little bit higher? Or
of course. But I believe that will constantly be true. But at least it's a starting point.
And may I ask you, at your IPO, how many million euros did you raise, and what is actually the cost of an IPO? Yeah, in terms of percent of the raised capital, can you give us an idea how much the whole process actually cost you?
Yeah, we raised a rather small amount. We raised 2.5 million euros. Yeah. There are legal reasons to that. If you want to go above that, you are in a much more tedious process. So it takes more time, energy, and money. So we decided to keep it at that level, which in retrospect was probably a bad idea because we were oversubscribed by a factor of 6.
Wow.
So
pretty bad idea. Or maybe not.
Yeah, well, and the cost is we are a bit tight with our money. So we tried to put it at a very low level. Of course, there are always unavoidable costs, but I think we did it pretty lean, and we were at some 15% of the raised.
15%.
Yeah.
Quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah, but you can easily spend
more.
much more.
Yeah. Per, how expensive was your IPO in terms of percentage of capital raised?
I cannot answer that, but it was lower.
Okay.
Definitely lower, yeah. We have a confidential agreement with the party we use to support us.
Yeah. Fredrika, why did you do your IPO, and do you think it was a good decision in hindsight?
It's actually an interesting story from the startup perspective, because coming from the innovation space as we did, there are a lot of rumors out there, IPOs, and being on the stock exchange actually has quite a bad rap. You're supposed to, make yourself investable to VCs, and you absolutely do not want to be at the stock market. So that's basically what you're taught at entrepreneurship courses at the university and so on. So when we were out there and we needed money basically to build our algae farm, we were approaching VCs and everything, but just as you said, if you do manufacturing, it's like, whoa, come back to us in a couple of years when it works, So there was absolutely no way we could do that. Yeah. While at the same time, we were contacted by a lot of people who actually wanted to invest in Simris because they heard about us and they thought that this was really, really great and they wanted to be a part of it. And then we were contacted by an investment bank who actually said that, look, guys, we have many of our customers who really want to invest with you. Can we do a private placement for you? And we said that, actually, why not? If the VCs don't want us, but the people want us, why don't we go for that route? So we decided to do a private placement in 2013, where we raised 14 million kronor. That's roughly 1.4 million euros, and we got 80 shareholders at once.
But this was not on Nasdaq. This was pre-Nasdaq.
This was pre-Nasdaq, exactly. Yeah. But during that process, we also promised those new investors that we would do an IPO on the Nasdaq First North within 12 to 24 months. So that was the story behind that. We didn't quite make it within those 24 months. It actually took us 26 months, but for us, it was the promise that we had made to our shareholders at that time. And we're actually quite happy that we did it. There is this rumor about that, startups, they IPO because they can't get money anywhere. Actually, we had quite good cash when we went when we did the IPO, which was also important to us to feel that we can do this when we're really strong. And of course, we raised capital as well during that process. We raised roughly 50 million kronor, or 5 million euros. And we got 3,000 shareholders today. And I must say that what I'm most happy about it is that it actually helped us a lot in building in structure in the company when it comes to, for example, the financial reports and so on. Whereas before, we always had to give us, those monthly reports, and you never knew what really to write there and what not to write there. But within this framework, there are quite strict rules about what you're supposed to do and how to do it. And it's actually helpful when you are a young company, because it's basically just a manual for best practice for financial reporting, which I think is a good thing.
Was it very difficult to learn how to become such an IPO-ready company in terms of internal processes, in terms of having the right employees, in terms of transforming as a startup company from a chaotic startup to a IPO-ready startup, which is less chaotic?
Well, I would say that we have done harder things in this company than listing, definitely. No, it is a structure, and as long as the structure there, it's really not that hard. You have strict benchmarks for what to do and how to do it, and I think it's helpful. I think that's a good thing. I would not say that the amount of work should not scare anyone away. However, you must be aware that you will have to perform on a very, very high level after that. There is no way that you can run and hide when things go crap for half a year or something like that. It's going to hurt, So you have to sort of both have the guts, but also know that you are prepared as a company, as an organization, with your markets, with your customers, to be that you will be able to perform for a company that is listed. So that, I would say, is something that you should think a lot about beforehand. But otherwise, for the process itself, it shouldn't scare anyone away.
I basically want to ask all of you, how do you think crowdfunding is comparing to listing on Nasdaq? Yeah? In many other European markets, the Netherlands, for example, or the UK, there are very big crowdfunding platforms that have raised way above 100 million euro in, I don't know, hundreds of transactions, if I think about Crowdcube in the UK, for example. But here, and you also have some crowdfunding platforms in Sweden, right? Yeah. And I mean, it would be an alternative to listing on Nasdaq. What do you think are the pros and cons compared to crowdfunding?
Should I start?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think these two, actually they're quite close to each other in a way. You could think of the stock market as one form of crowdfunding, if you'd like, with more regulation and everything, of course. I would say that crowdfunding is probably a little bit more early stage, and I would totally agree that once you go public on the market, on the stock exchange, you should be able to have visibility that you're actually going to perform very well, because the risk there is that once you go public and the market price, it's traded, so there's a market price depending on demand and supply. So if you need more funding, it's not a good idea to like go public, then not perform, and then the market value goes down. And if you want to raise more money afterwards, then you're stuck with the market price. So I guess that is like the key differentiator here. If you go public, your pricing is out of your hands. So you better perform well after you do that.
There's no way back.
Yeah. Well, there is a way back.
The genie is
if you
out
delist
of the bottle, yeah.
Yeah.
And Fredrika, how do you compare crowdfunding and listing?
Well, first of all, I think crowdfunding, yes, for earlier phases, for lower amounts of money, it's a good thing. I think that companies who are not ready for an IPO, yes, they could go for the crowdfunding route. However, I'm not sure whether it is really as attractive enough for investors, because, I mean, one thing about being a listed company is that you bring in liquidity into your share, so that you're actually able to, invest more when you want to or sell off when you need to, and you don't have that when you participate in a crowdfunding round. Yeah. So it depends a little bit, I would say, also with the relationship that you have or want to have with your investors as well. So I think crowdfunding, it's nice, but I also think, again, the stock market is, in a way of crowdfunding too. So there are many ways in helping to participate companies to grow. So,
Göran?
Yeah, well, we hear, of course, about the Dutch that seems to raise enormous amounts in crowdfunding. So it may be different interpretations of the legal frameworks, but here in Sweden it's earlier stage primarily because you're limited. The interpretation in Sweden is that it's 200 shareholders maximum for crowdfunding, and that means that it's generally lower amounts being raised, and you can, if you're more than 200, then you're not allowed to continue with the crowdfunding. That's the interpretation as I understand it. We consider it to be much earlier stage so it was not suitable for us. Our customer, BIST, that runs the taxi services, they actually made, and they have a solution where each city is formed as a subsidiary that is actually crowdfunded. So that works very well for them, but they are raising less than 1 million euros in each city, and in that scenario, I think crowdfunding is excellent.
How much are the people from Nasdaq? That's the reason why they are not on the panel. How much are they actually double checking that your financial plan, your expectation of how you can grow the company is actually closer to reality than to fiction? How much are these Nasdaq people actually giving you a quality stamp and doing the real work in order to bring you down to reality and not to oversell to shareholders? Are they doing a good job in this area, Per?
Yes, I think so. I mean, from their point of view, they must secure that the company coming into Nasdaq is approved. If they don't do that, there will be a lot of failures, and then suddenly the total brand of Nasdaq will be questioned, and also the First North, what kind of companies do they really have there? So I think they are very eager to make sure that there are quality stamps on those companies which take into the list, definitely.
Timo, first you went out in Helsinki and then in Stockholm, but I think your Stockholm listing was actually more successful, right? What is the difference between the Finnish shareholders and the Swedish shareholders? What is maybe also a difference in culture? Because here in Sweden, I think it's really common that many people are buying shares not only in the big companies but actually in the small companies. Let's take a vote. How many people, Swedish people in the room, bought shares in startups listed on Nasdaq First North? Okay, how many hands? Maybe 10. Okay, yeah. So
I think it's quite different actually if you compare the two, and you're right, you're absolutely right that here in Stockholm there's a very vibrant investment community for startups, and I really think and believe, and it's already happened actually, that Stockholm has become really the hub for startups, at least here in the Nordics, and it's becoming to be that of Europe, and if you only look at the amounts of liquidity and companies being listed in the First North Stockholm, the numbers are totally different. It's so much bigger here in Sweden than it is in Helsinki. And so I've told the Nasdaq people many times that I think you should just, stop doing each country separately and just do one Nordic.
One European.
Yeah, I think that would actually be the thing to do.
And it should be in Stockholm?
Well, Stockholm, if these exchanges would be competing, I guess they are competing, so I think Stockholm is winning, definitely right now.
And are they listening to you at all, the Nasdaq people?
I don't know.
Okay, we have a conversation afterwards. And you also listed one portfolio company, Energize, but which country is this company coming from originally?
It is a Finnish company as well. It's a Finnish company, so there we did the IPO here in Stockholm a couple of months back. It was a very successful IPO as well, and so that's a Finnish company listed here in Stockholm. I think we're going to see more and more of that. So Nordic companies, no matter where they are based, where their domicile is, they are doing the listing in Stockholm, because all of the investors are also concentrating towards.
And how was it on the roadshow to build this brand of the Finnish startup listing in Stockholm? Was it easy, or did it make any difference the country of origin, or are the Swedish already in love with the Finnish by definition, and it's a piece of cake?
Well, you need to take this into account when you are building these companies. So for example, in Energize, 1 year before the IPO, we brought in a Swedish executive chairman of the board, and we did hires in Sweden. So it's becoming like a Nordic company instead of a Finnish company. And then towards the investors, I think the most interesting part was saving energy in Chinese industry. So it's really the impact combined with the profitability that they are doing, and then having this Nordic background. And I think we should all start more talking about Nordic companies instead of like Finnish, Norwegian.
Nordic is the new cool brand.
Yeah, I think so.
Are you guys, you CEOs of listed companies or co-founders, are you tracking how many shareholders are actually coming from outside of Sweden? Is there actually a lot of interest from German guys or Dutch guys who get invested in Swedish startups? Is this something that you can track at all and that you find out that it's happening? Or do you think it's mainly Swedish retail shareholders that invest in Swedish startups because the Germans don't have a clue how to do it and they don't know the companies anyway?
End of every quarter, we report changes, and also we, in our quarter report, put the names of the 5 biggest. And when we do that work, we will also go through the list there. And there we can, of course, see that it's an increasing number of international investors in the company, especially from UK and from Switzerland. And the reason for that, I don't know, but it's interesting.
And are you making similar experiences, Göran and Fredrika?
Yes, but I when looking through the list, the vast majority is Swedish.
It's the same here. We see the odd investor from abroad, basically, and it's actually true. It is growing. So I think that perhaps it's because you start gaining a bit of a reputation in certain circles or something like that. But it's still a quite small part, and it would actually be interesting to get in more from abroad as well.
And I mean, at Simris, you have a very international strategy,
Absolutely,
right? You
yes.
want to go into many markets, sell to many consumers, so it makes sense to open up and communicate in English, hopefully. I think it helps, for targeting international shareholders.
Yeah. I mean, like now, for example, we're talking about post-IPO directed share issues. I mean, we are in the process now of actually talking to investors, and they are not Swedish investors, because we basically want a larger owner who is sort of is already working and operating on the markets and the channels which we want to access. So, and you won't really find those kind of investors here. So I do think that even from the investment side, we will turn into a more international company very soon.
I want to add, we were invited from Nasdaq last year to something called Innovative 46 in New York. So I had the opportunity to present the company on Times Square there. Wow. And after that, we also have the big American investors on board. So that's one way to capitalize that Nasdaq is an international company, and a Swedish company will have the opportunity to present themselves in New York as well.
Okay, guys, I think the time is up of this panel. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about going public in Sweden. And it's time for heavy networking during our first coffee break. Thank you very much.